So we've jumped around again, students, in the Old Testament. Um, I'm not having you read all the details of the 40 years that the Jewish people wandered around in the desert, making their way toward the promised land. And in the first 4 chapters of Deuteronomy, Moses gives a kind of synopsis of that story. So we're going to be reading his synopses of what happened and what brought them there. But notice he keeps emphasizing how the Lord has provided for them. Even though he's angry at them and has sworn that the first generation will not enter into the promised land except for Caleb and Joshua, nonetheless, he has cared for them and given them manna and quail and so forth, and made sure that their enemies have not overcome them. But I want to talk about what Jesus says. We're beginning a series of readings where Jesus is talking to his disciples. This is just before the Passion. And he gives them a warning of the end times, the apocalypse. Eschatology, we call it, as a fancy word for the sort of writings and the study of the end of the world. Now, of course, we're not in the business, as he tells us. Only the Father knows when this is going to happen. But in the same way that during Advent, we hear readings about the coming of Jesus, and we hear readings from the book of Revelations about the second coming of Jesus, in a way, Jesus is always coming into our lives, not just at Advent, but anytime we seek him. And in another sense, the world is always ending. Things are always going from bad to worse in the world. The long defeat of history, as J.R.R. Tolkien calls it. But let's see one verse in particular that I want to focus on. Okay, I want to try to get that thing out of there. There we go. Matthew 24:21. This is my favorite resource, Bible Hub. Okay, so all you have to do is Google Matthew 24:12, Bible Hub. Click on the first thing that comes up and you'll get here. For this one verse, they give you a whole bunch of translations from the original Greek that the New Testament was written in. Top translation, New International Version. Jesus says, because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. English Standard Version. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. Well, if you go down and you look at the Douay Rheims, which was the old Catholic Bible, and because iniquity hath abounded, the charity of many shall grow cold. So what's he really saying? Well, if you scroll down, you begin to see the actual Greek words that are translated. And you can click on the words themselves for more info on them. So Jesus is saying, because of the multiplication, the increase of wickedness, but the word for wickedness is anomian, which really literally means lawlessness, also iniquity. Iniquity is deliberate wrongdoing, disobedience, sin by extension, but literally from the word anomos, meaning illegality or not lawful. In other words, violation of law or wickedness. So Jesus is saying there will come a time when people will act as if there is no law or the law does not apply to them. The law written in our hearts and the Mosaic law, any kind of structured, proper ideal of behavior. Then he continues, the love of many, and the word for love is agape, in other words, Christian or self-emptying love. The love of many or much or most, the love of many or most will grow cold. But what does that mean? Well, you scroll down further and you start to see these commentaries. These are all from public domain Protestant sources, but they're quite good. Even Ellicott here says that the translation of the word, which is called iniquity, he's probably quoting the King James, is better translated lawlessness, because Ellicott is looking at the original Greek. And then he talks about what this might mean. He says this was the natural result of the condition of things implied in lawlessness. The tendency of all such times, all such end times, all such apocalyptic times, because there have been many times where things have really gotten bad really quickly, as they did around the year 70 when the temple was destroyed by the Romans after the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. Many people think he was referring at least to that time, if not to the ultimate apocalypse. The tendency of all such times, writes Ellicott, as seen in the histories of famines and pestilences and revolutions, is to intensify selfishness, both in the more excusable form of self-preservation and in the darker form of self-aggrandizement. To translate that, when COVID began, I was shocked at the behavior of my friends, most of whom are devout Catholics. And I think they, out of fear, slid into a kind of attitude that was lawless in a subtle way, or certainly selfish, the selfishness of self-preservation at least, thinking that the typical law of love, agape, the love that Jesus refers to in the New Testament, doesn't really apply to us. We've got to get what we need to get. I want what I want when I want it, even if it's the Eucharist. I don't care about others. I want it. I'm going to get it. And then there's conspiracy theories, there's paranoia, there's all kinds of stuff. In other words, what Ellicott is saying is that happens when times get tough. When the going gets tough, times get tougher. People start behaving either better or worse. People are tested by what happens. Sometimes the color of my face changes because of this stupid white balance. It's either that or I've got COVID and the fever is coming and going and it shows in my face. Well, my point is, when Jesus talks about the end of times, he also tells us elsewhere that we are in the end times, which he said 2,000 years ago. The end times are the times that touch eternity. But really every present moment touches eternity. And the world, as J.R.R. Tolkien said, history is a long defeat with glimpses of final victory. And when things start to really wallow in defeat and we get really scared, you will find that even some of your good friends or some devout Catholics around you behave with a kind of inner proclivity to lawlessness, or selfishness at least. So anyway, that's that. More tomorrow, unless the world ends. If it does, you've seen your final video and you won't have to worry about me grading it.